My name is Angela Harris. I am a first grade teacher at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School, the African American Immersion School, and this is my 6th year teaching. I think that particularly this year, it's really important for teachers to be documenting their experiences in the classroom. I think that we have seen a slight, decline in the respect for the teaching profession. And I think that it's important for folks to get a firsthand experience of what's actually happening in our classroom spaces.
My name is Lucas Weir. I'm a culturally responsive teacher leader in the district, and I teach here at Barack Obama School of Career and Technical Education, and this is my 14th year as a teacher. I was really excited when I had the opportunity to participate in the Video Diary project, and obviously a little nervous as well, but I feel like over the course of the last 6 years working at Obama, and even working at North Division prior, I think a lot of people don't understand what our jobs are like.
Name's Raven Chappelle, teach at Allenfield, and I've been teaching 5th grade for 3 years now. I decided to join you all on this video diary journey just because even in my own family, I feel like there are so many people that don't really recognize and realize just how much teachers do beyond teaching.
Today is Monday, April 4th, 2022. It is the first Monday after our spring break vacation. Numbers were kind of low today.
Yeah, it was a long day. What is frustrating and taxing is the interruption and the distraction that these standardized tests they're impacting our schools in a bad way. Let's just say that. And I agree and I understand that we need to gauge where our students are at, how they're learning, how they're grasping concepts, but standardized testing ain't it. That is not the only way that young people can showcase their intelligence, by clicking on a screen, a multiple choice question.
So do you want the good news or the bad news first? So the good news is today that I was able to work really closely with a handful of students, especially some of those that had missed class and needed to make up some work. The bad news is that I saw 15 students today across 3 blocks. So our school is on block scheduling. We have 4 blocks in a day. I have 64 students across those 3 blocks, and I saw 15. In the Milwaukee Public Schools, we have about 30 high schools. Not all of them are created equal. We have what is called select criteria enrollment in the district. So there are a handful of schools, and they select on 7th grade attendance, and they select on standardized test scores, and they require written essays. So when you have those criteria, you're going to have 5 to 7 schools like we do in MPS that have between 90 and 96, 97% attendance. And then you're also going to have schools like mine that really struggle with attendance.
Today is Tuesday, April 5th. Oh, we had a pretty good day today. And when we have a good day, I am completely tapped and exhausted. We're also learning fractions, which, that was around the time in my school experience that I kind of fell off the math bandwagon. Fractions was not easy for me. So even though I understand it now, it's still difficult to explain. We're getting it. Just not as quickly as we need to move. Our pacing, it moves so quickly, and I struggle with leaving students behind, but that's kind of what we have to do. A lot of my fellow 5th grade teachers say look, we can't wait till everyone gets it. We just got to keep moving. It doesn't feel right to me, but that's the way it is. And I'm tracked with my pacing. So
it is the end of the school day. And I can't lie to say that I'm not thankful that this day is over. If I'm being honest, my scholars are really struggling with music class. they have no problem when they are in front of me, but when they are with other leaders in the building, they seem to really struggle. We were on pace to be able to have a second recess, but just because they couldn't get it together in music class, and we spent some time this afternoon really trying to repair the harm that was committed, we ended up not being able to get second recess. But I mean, all in all, this is the second day back from spring break. Better attendance today.
So today I'm really looking forward to going home and doing very little tonight. I think one of the things we hear a lot about is that the job of a teacher doesn't end with the last bell of the day. And I think that's, at least for me, I know that to be true. So like, for example, if we have, 20 to 25 school days or weekdays in a month, my guess is that I'm working into the evening between like 10 and 15 of those.
I think one of the things that, like, as a teacher, I often don't think is talked about is just like the emotional drain and the physical drain that happens at the end of every day. It was an exciting day today. Yesterday, we had our mock election, and the scholars voted for Cavalier Johnson, our first Black mayor ever, which is so important, particularly because I teach at an African American immersion school, but also because Cavalier Johnson comes from the same community that a lot of them presently live in. I have some scholars who really exhibit some extreme behaviors who I really see growing, which is exciting. Allowing themselves to make different choices, to refocus their behavior. And it's always so nice to have this growth happening, right? Because I know that we're winding down to the end of the school year, and so to really see them maturing in this way really shows me that they'll be ready for second grade.
I saw an NEA, National Education Association poll a little while back that said that 55% of teachers are looking to exit the field earlier than they had planned. And my initial thought is that I'm not particularly shocked. For the first time in 14 years, I applied and just recently had a second interview for a non-teaching position, although still in MPS. For me, though, it hasn't been the pandemic, and it hasn't been burnout associated with overwork. For me, it's frustration with systems that are deeply flawed and deeply committed to the status quo, but those systems and the people operating those systems can't see it. I've kind of sensed for the last couple years that those in decision-making positions feel that as long as we have a handful of quality public options to go along with the private, the choice, the charters, to accommodate our middle class families, that as long as those people are taken care of, that it's okay to have dropout factories like Obama's. And to me, that's unacceptable.
It was another pretty decent day. I'm actually feeling a little bit more energized than yesterday, just because I was feeding off my students' energy and excitement. So I told them that we have a planned protest coming up on Earth Day, because they have expressed to me their interest and concern in climate change, and I know that Earth Day is often a day that folks raise awareness. So I talked to my principal, and he approved the idea of my fifth graders organizing their own protest. Math went a little bit better today too. They're starting to get the pattern a little bit. There are some students that have come up to me today actually and were like, look, I still don't get this, I need extra help. So I'm gonna have to find some time somehow tomorrow or Friday to spend a little extra time with those that need a little bit more explanation.
My first video entry for today was pretty heavy, and I wanted to check back in on a more positive note. So during my lunch, I was visited by a former student, actually a former student from this year. She was coming back, not just to check in, but she also needed a letter of recommendation. So, like, that's the reason we do this job, is to see that we are able to make an impact, that we can make those connections that go beyond our time together in high school. So it was definitely a much needed lift to my spirits in the middle of the day. So I wanted to check in this morning and just talk about the first responsibility that I have, at least most mornings, is to do phone collections. So a lot of MPS high schools have students come in, and the doors are actually right behind me. And then they check their bags through an X-ray scanner to see if they have any contraband, to see if they have cell phones. But you see right behind me here is the scanner that they walk through. So students are taking off anything metal, they're removing their belts. It's just not like the best way to welcome kids into the building. And I know as someone who went to high school post-Columbine, that this has been a reality for a lot of schools for the last 25 years, but not all MPS high schools do a scan, and not all MPS high schools collect phones. And what we would actually see is that schools and MPS, high schools and MPS that serve more white students, that serve more middle class students, are the schools that don't have scans. And you have to wonder what race and class has to do with that decision.
Had a pretty good day overall, but it was, I don't know, this day was it was just a little bit tough for me. Just dealing with a lot of anxiety today. And yeah, I was thinking last night about how there's not a whole lot of like space for teachers to deal with their own mental health issues. I don't feel it doesn't feel fair for me to call in to work most days. I don't want to stick a sub in my classroom when there's so much more that we need to learn. It's hard to prioritize yourself as a teacher. I'll just say it like that. One thing that we talked about today was the war in the Ukraine and in Russia. Something that my students have been, they've been bringing up a lot. So I don't want to just ignore their requests to know more about their world. The mood was very somber, and that probably added to my stress today. There was a lot of kids that knew quite a bit more than I thought that they would. Like I said, my scholars are brilliant, so they always surprise me.
Thursdays are always my long day because it is our staff meeting day. I really, really wish that staff meeting time was spent more effectively. Today was a decent day. I had two buses. Two buses were canceled today because there weren't any drivers. And the majority of my students, about half of them, ride the bus. So I had some out absent today because they didn't have a bus, obviously. If I had to think about roses, buds, and thorns for today, roses are, oh jeez. Sorry, the phone rang. And that's another thing, like parent complaints about student behavior, and I don't know. I'm just trying to do everything in my power to build a restorative community amongst my scholars, and the parents aren't aware of what that is. And if someone does something to their child, they're just like, that child should be suspended and kicked out of the classroom. And I'm like, it's just not that simple. They're getting really strong at reading. Even some of the ones who were really struggling at the beginning of the school year are starting to really become really strong in their literacy skills, which is always exciting to see.
Today is Friday, April 8th, and it is 3:31 p.m., so it is officially the weekend. which is pretty exciting for a teacher. We got brand new smart boards. So everyone was really excited. Like the teachers in our building don't get excited by a lot of stuff. But there was like a buzz with the classrooms around me. And I think it's because we've gotten so used to not having nice things. We've really come to expect that we're gonna have to do more with less. Again, I'm a 14-year teacher. And for many of the years, I used my own projector that I bought in my first year of teaching for a couple $100. And I would use that projector because there wasn't always one. And I think when you don't get stuff for so long, when you don't have the tools you need, you just make do. I wanted to do one more video, especially considering the theme of teacher appreciation. When I was thinking about this last post that I wanted to do, I talked to some of the staff in my building and got some ideas of what they think teacher appreciation would look like. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting is ask us questions about what we do, about what we're teaching. I think teachers spend a lot of money out of their pockets, and yeah, we get a tax credit. So we get some of it back in taxes, but I think most teachers spend way over the $250 that the tax credit a lot. So send money for supplies, or just send the supplies. Support teachers politically. Be willing to pay money in property taxes. Demand new formulas for funding our schools. In neighborhoods like mine, the property taxes don't cut it. And then hold people accountable. Okay? We just passed a referendum here in Milwaukee, and we got a bunch of new money. And it doesn't always end up where it's supposed to end up. So then hold your stakeholders accountable. Make sure that they're following through on the things that they promised.
Fridays are always exciting in my class because it is Freedom Friday. We choose a freedom fighter or an influential Black person to learn about on Friday. It was a low number in terms of attendance. We had 2 buses that didn't come, which happens rather frequently. I was definitely a little tired on Friday. I had attended the Bucks game on Thursday night. It was a really exciting game. The Bucks won. And so I was definitely tired when I get to school, and I'm always hyper aware of how I'm feeling because I know how I'm feeling can manifest in different ways in the classroom. And so I'm always trying to be very aware of like how my energy is and how that is showing up in the classroom space. I think, one of the things that I say about teaching often is that teaching is a job where you always have to be on. At all times, like at all points of the day. Even if you're in the hallway interacting with other teachers, the scholars are watching you. Like they're watching how you interact, they're watching how you talk. And so like when I'm in the classroom space, even if I feel tired, I can't let them know that I feel tired because they expect me to show up the same way that I do every day. Again, we are a building that's super short staffed, and so the person who covers my lunch and covers the scholars outdoor recess has pretty much been out all week. And so I didn't have an opportunity to have lunch at all this week, and I have been taking the scholars out for recess as well, so that's a little frustrating. This week was fine. Like I can't complain. It definitely wasn't one of my worst weeks, and so I look forward to what next week will bring.
Hey, what's up? It's Friday, April 8th, end of the week. And I'm feeling it for sure. The day went by pretty well. And one reason it went so smoothly was because I had another teacher helping me out in here, and she happened to be basically like my mentor when I was a student teacher. I inherited her room, so it's so helpful to have her here, not just to help lead other small groups so that we have more of like a smaller student to teacher ratio, but also just to run things past her. One thing that I was thinking about today was that MPS, and I'm not sure if it's just our school district, but new teachers are only given a mentor for their first year, as if after 1 year of teaching with a mentor, you got it all figured out. I'm really grateful that, you know, we had this opportunity to do some reflecting and that we had an opportunity to share with the general public what it's like to be a teacher. If you know a teacher, definitely show them some love during Teacher Appreciation Week, because we need it now more than ever.